How you doing? Oh, boy.
Good, good.
Yay. Whenever you're ready. Oh, here we are. What's today's date? First, right? Second, 30th. At this time, I'll call to order the City of Joliet Pre-Council meeting for April 30th, 2018. The Honorable Mayor Bob Odekirk presiding. Mayor?
Begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilman Dickinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Girl.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
First on the agenda is citizens to be heard on agenda items. Robert Hernandez regarding Council Memo 242-18.
Good afternoon, members of the City Council. I just wanted to say that I remember back in years ago sitting down with the late Mayor Art Schultz when the fountain was put in over at Bicentennial Park, and it was named for his wife. I know it's an expensive item to fix that, but I hope you give it some consideration because there's hundreds and hundreds of children and people who use the Bicentennial Park, and particularly that fountain. They're the ones that look into the baseball stadium or walk by the Bicentennial Park because they can't afford to go in. And many of them utilize that park. And you would be helping hundreds and hundreds of poor families that gather at Bicentennial Park. But it's something to take into consideration. I know it's an expensive item. I'm just asking you to take it into consideration to look at allocating or raising the funds to fix that fountain. It would be great if you could do that, particularly for our less fortunate in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on an agenda item this evening? Seeing none, we'll pass it over to the city manager to discuss tomorrow night's agenda items.
Mayor and council, I'd like to go through this agenda tonight, but in so doing, I'd like to, and this will come up after the ordinances, but I am going to try and also include in my comments which items are also coming up for one of three public or city council committees for discussion. We had one last week, and then we have two more tomorrow. So we thought that might be of some help as we kind of work through this agenda, just in the interests of moving as expeditiously as possible. But first off, let me just mention that tomorrow night's regular council meeting have a couple of presentations, as so noted, about the new Holiday Inn Convention Center opening, some introductions by members of Embassy Church. Then we have three proclamations, and then reappointments to the Joliet Public Library Board. Following that, and after citizens to be heard, we'll have the council committee reports, again by land use and legislative, public safety, public service. And it's the latter two. Public service will meet tomorrow at 4, public safety at 5 tomorrow night, followed by the consent agenda and approval of minutes. Moving on to the ordinances, I'd like to first draw your attention. The very first two memos, Council Memo 226-18 and 227-18, both deal with a partial vacation of some public easements. 226-18 deals with the vacation of a 5-foot wide strip of land, 65 feet long. It's a portion of a 25-foot wide public utility and drainage easement located at 3416 Timber Lake Drive. Council Memo 2718 is an ordinance on the vacation of a 10-foot wide by 71-foot long portion of a 20-foot public utility and drainage easement located at 8103 Settlers Pond Way. Both of these vacations were recommended by staff, and the Planning Commission in both cases approved both on a unanimous vote. It was 7 ayes and no zeros, or no nays. The next one, however, Council Memo 2218. I'd like to, let me first set the stage for this, then I'll turn to Kendall Jackson for some comments. Council Memo 2218 is an ordinance. Either we have actually two ordinances in the packet.
We don't have a 2218.
228.
228.
Right?
22818.
Yes.
Is that the number?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Excuse me.
okay. Just wanted to check. Maybe we're missing something.
Okay. Council Memo 22818. And again, there's two ordinances in the packet. One, which would deny the waiver request for public improvements. Basically, they're for public sidewalks and streetlights at 1040 South Rowell Avenue. The other is to approve the waiver request. Staff was recommending denial. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the waiver request on a 6-to-1 vote, 6 ayes and 1 nay. Let me turn first to Kendall Jackson to share the staff's recommendation. Then I'll add a few more comments before turning it back to the council. Mr. Jackson.
Yes, Mayor and members of the City Council. In this matter, the Plan Commission did vote for approval of the waiver. Staff, from a consistency standpoint, passed proposals for waivers of this matter, felt that it did not conform, the waiver request did not conform with public improvement requirements, so therefore the staff did not concur with the Plan Commission on their request.
I have a question.
Could I just make 3 other points, then turn it back to the council? I think, as you deal with waiver requests, I think it's helpful to just have a couple of things to keep in mind. And I think one that throughout my career, one principle I've seen a lot of council embrace, and that is, should new growth pay its own way? We all know that growth occurs haphazardly. Sometimes it occurs in one area, but rarely do we have a situation where you get a whole block or multiple blocks all developing at the same time, especially when you're dealing with infill development. Secondly, when you talk about waiving a public improvement, the other thing to consider is, by not requiring the applicant to pay for those improvements now, 2 things could result. One, the future costs could very well be put on the shoulders of existing taxpayers. The applicant, who is normally required to pay that, if the waiver takes place, then we need to accept the fact that future installation, as we recently saw on some street lights, ultimately would be picked up by the typical taxpayers. And secondly, is as staff has seen and myself, is that the best time to put in new improvements, especially sidewalk, curb and gutter, is at the time of development. Over time, if at some point in the future you want to come back and reinstall or install for the first time sidewalks, and especially sidewalks, sometimes landscaping gets put in. So it could be a disruption, it could be more costly, but those are just some things to consider as you think about the waiver of those requests. But as you can see, this is an ability of the applicant to bring these waiver requests to you, the council, to waive in, but we just wanted to share with you a few of those other points for your consideration. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you and the council for discussion.
Yeah, I have a question. Normally, when something like that occurs, we usually get a copy of the minutes of the Plan Commission, and they're not in here.
Mr. Jackson?
I only saw, it didn't say the whole meeting, it just said that it was, I just went through it twice, and I don't have it. Unless you have it, you can tell me what page it's on. I saw where it said, there was a planning staff, joint variation, staff report, pictures, and then it goes right, mine goes right to the thing.
I'm not seeing the minutes
Yeah,
either.
Generally, there is a summation of
Right.
meeting minutes, since we have the ability now to go online and look at the meeting and hear what happened.
I just went online to look at plan commission, it's not in plan.
Oh, it's not in there
It's just
online?
the regular, meeting, it's not in my, I just checked there,
Yeah,
it's not there either.
yeah.
So I would like.
Not sure why the summary didn't get in here.
It just says the plan commission moving forward.
Can we have it for tomorrow before the vote?
What we can provide for tomorrow is what we typically provide, and again, it's a summary of the meeting minutes. That's what we've done since we've gone to the Granicus system, which allows people to go online and listen to and see the proceedings, but we can provide a summary.
You got the summary already, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, well, I like to see what questions were asked and who voted, instead of just having, because that's how we used to get it. And I prefer to have it that way. I don't know if the rest of council does, but that's what I prefer.
And I agree. I think especially for the council to have a complete packet of the record, all documents, minutes is appropriate. Let us work on that, and especially when there is a short period of time between the planning commission and council, we're work to get as much as we can to you, especially
And then
the
if there's,
minutes.
you know,
yeah.
I can go back and look at more detail, but I always like to see those few questions like we used to get it, and then it always came with that, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I need details.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other council questions, comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Harold, again, well, one thing, the street lights, I guess the other side of the street, and maybe Kendall, you could tell me, is that township or county? Because there's street lights across the street from this property, all the way down Rowell Avenue. That'd be on the west side of the street.
Yeah, I'm gonna defer to
So we asked.
Public Works Director. He may have a little bit better handle on what's there and what isn't.
Before, who appeared against.
No question.
Yeah, the lighting that may be out there, Tara, I'm assuming it's, I don't see it on my sheet here, but I think it's just the, we call temporary lighting and lights on wooden
That's way out
kind of
there.
power poles. And that may be very well be out there. I believe across the street is not in the city.
Right,
We
I didn't
did
think so.
an NIP project put a few years ago, and
Yeah.
we did a half street, we didn't put full width, because that was on the city on the west side.
That's probably.
But there's street lights.
Township.
I believe there is like I said, the ComEd wooden, the lights that are on wooden poles.
Yeah.
We'll double check myself, I have to look at that pretty closely.
Right, but these would be the same type of lights that
They're talking
you would be
sidewalk on the
requiring
side, right?
the church to put in?
No, the church would put in the permanent ComEd lights, which are the concrete, the ones on concrete posts, and with the cobra head hanging off, they're 25 foot tall. They wouldn't be on wooden poles, they would be, like I said, the permanent lights. We consider the other ones temporary lights, the lights that are on the wooden poles.
They've been temporary for a long time.
Correct.
Okay. And again, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but again, I guess it was a communication issue with the church when they, applied and they were told that they could get away with it. Now, we're saying that waivers should be given, and I understand your argument for why they shouldn't be for future developments and things of that, and I guess you're referring to the other church that it came and now asked for streetlights. And I guess, again, there's a communication breakdown with staff and with the council on that they had asked for a waiver, the other church. that at least wasn't aware of. And I think that at that time that it would have, you know, made my decision, you know, different on that. So again, I've been over in that neighborhood, especially after this came to light, and driven the neighborhood and talked to a couple homeowners over there, and they don't see the need of sidewalks. I don't understand why you know, have street lights on both sides of the street, but again, they temporary, said, so that's the issue, but it's well lit at night. I don't know, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Wright is here from the church. Is it okay if he,
Sure.
If he would like to address any other questions that staff or the council may have?
Yeah, I have a question. When staff is saying no to this recommendation, did they consider that a waiver? He was told he was going to get a waiver. Has that been considered by staff?
Let me first just say that when I first became aware of it, the request for waiver was brought to my attention because they said in the past, staff would bring waivers like that to the previous city managers and ask them if they would approve it or deny it. So that apparently was the process. I did not approve it or deny it at that time. I wanted to find out more information, and as part of my education as to what authority I have, that's when, in looking into it, discovered that the ordinance does not give the city manager the authority to waive subdivision requirements for public improvements like street lights and sidewalk. It's the council, and the council can only act after the planning commission. So at least during my watch, you know, I determined that, you know, we needed to come into compliance with the current ordinance. So if staff had some discussion with that, apparently it would have been along the line, well, the city manager historically in the past would approve or deny, but it's up to him. Kendall, do you know if there would have been any other comment or promise made on any waiver?
I do not know that to be a fact. These rules are in the subdivision regulations, which the planning staff typically helps administer. If there was a waiver request, that typically would go into the engineers. And in the past, as you've noted, previous city managers, I think, have administratively considered waiver requests. With this now being, I guess, a new process, we put together a new application form, and we will take these through the plan commission, but the waiver request as it originates would come through the engineers.
If I could just also add to this, you know, as city manager, I'm always open for further delegation of authority from the council to the city manager. But in so doing, I always ask, provide some guidelines, because the worst thing I think sometimes that happens is inconsistency. You know, the manager, council, staff tells one person one thing, another person another. So anytime you get into things like waivers, I think there does need to be some element of consistency, because again, going back to the financial, if the applicant, the new growth, doesn't pay for it, who does? And usually that ends up being the taxpayers. And that's fine if that's what the policy position the council wants to see. Now, again, even with that, there could be exceptions. But I think that's one of the better practices I've seen over time, is with each kind of policy, have some guidance given as to whether or not there should be some consistency, some policies, some values, you know, to whoever makes that final decision, you know, to maybe guide the best possible decision, especially where these are hard public improvements that will need to be maintained by the city, and if not put in now, but in the future, then who should pay in the future? when maybe growth gets to the point where it surrounds these properties. It sometimes can take 5, 10, 15 years until the surrounding area develops.
Just one more question, and I'll move on. If Mr. Wright didn't have anything to say, or if no one had any questions for him. So, Mr. Hale, so did anyone, when I guess Mr. Wright or the church asked about the waiver, did staff let them know that staff wasn't, what was the word I'm looking for? What was not, wouldn't support the waiver?
I made a call myself, and I can't recall if it was to the Reverend or another member of the organization, but I expressed to them my concern and why I, at that time, could not support a waiver for the very same reasons I'm giving you tonight. So I had a one-on-one conversation with them, and they even at that time mentioned now they're moving ahead with financing, things like that. So I did personally express my opinion as well as the reason for that. And it's like public safety. Unfortunately, I have seen over my career, we oftentimes say that a sidewalk's not needed. I've seen the sad reality that you don't want both youth and adults walking in the street, especially at night. The safest place for them to walk, even if it's for a portion of a block, is on a sidewalk. And I've seen fatalities. So time and time again, I've always seen the best place for pedestrians, even if it's for a short space, is to be off the road on the sidewalk, especially at nighttime. And I've just seen too many auto pedestrian deaths and sad injuries that come when you don't have a sidewalk for them. But again, those are rare occurrences, but they do happen. And yes, it'll be a portion of a sidewalk today, but down as the adjoining undeveloped land develops, we'll have another section of sidewalk be extended as well. So.
And I was under the impression, Mr. L, that this waiver was, I guess, asked for prior to, and I could be wrong, you become the city manager, or it was given to ask for staff first, because this is something that's been kind of going on for some time now. I could be wrong about that, but that's it. I get no other questions.
I do have a question. So if this waiver goes through in the event of public safety, say someone does get hurt or killed because it was dark and there was no sidewalk, they were walking the street, they decide to sue, do they sue the city? Are we responsible because we allowed the waiver, or will they sue the property owner? Or both?
I'd have to turn to the corporate counsel.
Probably sue both. I could think of a few immunities that the city would have. It's the Tort Immunity Act.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Mayor? Yes. So if I understand this correctly, Councilman Morris and David too, I do agree that, staff or city managers, which for many years they did, shouldn't be giving a wink and a nod or approval that for something that really needs a vote ultimately, because, you can't tie the city's hand. But if I understand, this probably happened before this discussion happened, right, Terry? Before we started to tighten it up. So it's kind of like in between, in the gray area, right? Of the old way of doing business and then the more proper way. Am I following this right?
Yeah, and that's what I kind of brought up before. Okay. And that's why I thought, and Mr. Hill, he had mentioned that this would be the first one that goes through the proper process, I guess if you want to call it that, through the plan commission and then to the council, and not being decided by the city manager, as it had been in the past. But the church was told that they would go through to the city manager for the waiver. And at that point, I don't believe staff told them that they didn't approve of the waiver. If they'd have told, I believe, and again, I don't hate speaking for people, that staff didn't approve of it, or even to say, you know, we don't think you'll get the waiver, I don't think they would have proceeded. Again, that's me saying that.
You don't think they would have went forward with going to church or something?
No, I don't think they would waste their time with a waiver. I think they would either try to come up with the money to, you know, the reason being, they also asked for a certain size pipe in the, for the drainage, I guess the sewer. And city staff told them, no, you need a larger pipe in case you build a bigger building with more washrooms. Without hesitation, the church said, okay, you're right. We took that out of the waiver, and they just left the street lights and the sidewalk. So if staff had said, you know what, you need the sidewalk, just like you need the bigger pipe, they would have said, okay, we'll put the sidewalks in, because it's not going to be approved. We need our permits. We need to build. You know, this is, and I guess as they go into the season of building, it's costing them money. You know, the contractors want to go work somewhere else. Again, I'm not trying to make a sole case for them, and definitely not trying to speak for them. That's why I asked if Mr. Wright would come up, or if anyone had any questions for him, because I can't speak for the church. But I do remember them asking for a smaller drainage pipe, because, you know, the contractor or the architect drew that in the plan, a smaller pipe. And our staff, you know, knowing that they're going to probably expand the church, add an addition on in years to come, as Mr. L said, development, you know, in the area. And they would say, so that's already in the ground, so you should put the bigger pipe in now. And without hesitation, the church did that. If they just said, hey, you need sidewalks because we don't want nobody to get hit, it's a safety issue, I believe, and I, you know, let them speak for themselves, they would have done that. But they were under the impression that they just have to ask for the waiver to the city manager, because that's what we were doing at the time. And they would be given the waiver more than likely. Not that it was still guaranteed, but they knew that the pipe issue, that the city staff suggested the larger pipe. And they could have left that in there and asked for a waiver on that, I guess, right? Somebody, the bigger pipe, Jim? If they wanted a waiver to put the smaller pipe in as opposed to the...
Actually, I'm not aware at all. That's like a sanitary sewer. Okay. I wasn't aware they asked for that, but it sounds like they must have got a larger service line. Right. But right. I guess they could have asked for that also. But yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Reverend, do you want to address the council?
I don't want to get promoted today to Reverend. Name is Howard Wright. I represent the Redeemed Church of God in Christ. Several issues have come up now that we've come down for permits in January, and it got put off for a few months. And then we started hearing things that didn't fall in line with what we had originally been told with the contractual agreement and situation. So obviously it threw us all off as far as budget and timing and all those things are now. And right now we're held up with this. But what we're trying to do with the church is obviously stay within budget, you know, and we want to be secure as possible with building and making a commitment in a new community. We feel that we're bringing enough to that area that we would be safe. We don't plan to use the sidewalks because the church is indented far enough back that we're not going to be walking on that area at all. The only pedestrian would be people that will walk through there now using the street lights that exist on that property. We deem that our property will be well lit based upon the design from the committee presented us with. The lighting that we're producing in our parking lot is sufficient enough for us to be safe, so we feel good in that area. We, at this point, obviously have moved right to the brink of breaking ground. Obviously, I'll say that we spent our monies at this point to the point that we felt, because some promises were made. I wasn't even aware of this until we met Mr. Hale. He called me and I said, man, that threw us for a loop, if you will, because we had planned to move forward as is. If you will, and I approach your bench. Yes. This is what it looks like in the community now. And I guarantee you that it will be much more well lit than what it is at the present. When I go and drive through the community now, make that right onto Rowell Avenue, it's dark on the one side on our side of the street, except for the other side has one light intermittent going through the block. So there's nothing else. But we will bring our own lighting in our parking lot. We're hoping that's going to be sufficient, that will suffice for this committee so that we can move forward our building programs.
Any questions?
Yeah. You know, we're kind of sad that we've had all these changes and it's just for the last couple of weeks. We didn't even know about it. We didn't know until we got to the point of permits, and it's really disparaging for us as a church builder. We do not want to go back to our congregation and say we can't build because. Please and thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
We'll move on then. Council Memo 22918, ordinance approving a variation of use to allow continuation of a carry-out restaurant, a B1 use in an R4 zoning district located at 723 Taylor Street. I believe the carry-out restaurant is Linda's Pizza. The Zoning Board of Appeals approved this variation with conditions on a vote of 7 ayes. Staff concurs with the Planning Commission recommendation subject to those conditions. Is there any questions on this item? If not, moving on, ordinance approving a variation of use to allow continuation of an existing 2-unit, an R3 use in an R2 zoning district located at 503 South Des Plaines Street. The ZBA voted to approve this variation with conditions on a 5-2 vote. 5 ayes, 2 no votes. Staff concurs in the ZBA recommendation. Any questions on that item? And then last, Council Memo 23118, ordinances approving a variation of use to allow a B3 use in a B1 district and a special use permit to allow an auto, tire, and repair facility in an existing building located at 701 Plainfield Road. And you might notice here 2/3 vote would be required for passage. A motion was made by the ZBA to approve, subject to conditions. Only 2 aye votes were rendered. There was 5 nay votes. Hence, I think that's where the 2/3 vote would be required of the City Council to overturn that negative vote by the ZBA. Once again, I think I gave you that address, 701 Plainfield Road. Kendall, is there anything else you would like to add on this matter, which was failed to get approval from the ZBA?
The only thing that I can add is that there were residents from the adjacent neighborhood that showed up and expressed concerns about having a facility like this located at this address.
Okay. Any questions?
Yes.
I have a question. Is the applicant requesting the special use permit the same as the owner of the property, or is it just the business owner? You know, the person who runs the facility there. Is it the business owner asking for the special use permit, and or is it the property owner, and are they one and the same, or are they 2 different people? I looked through the staff report. I couldn't determine which was which. Because sometimes these special use permits, the actual operator of the business can come and ask for the special use permit, and the person who owns the property is kind of left out of the mix, I guess.
Yes, it's one and the same.
So the business owner and the property owner are one and the same, and are asking for the special use permit.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Kendall, just a little follow-up on this. Is this just a tire changing place, or is there anything else that's going on there in terms of service? Are they just changing tires?
Bear with me a moment.
Okay. I didn't see anything about being a mechanic or anything else. I was just wondering.
Is there anything else on that item? Are you still looking?
You can get back to me, Kendall.
Well, I think it's tire sales and installation at this location.
Okay, tire sales and installation, okay.
Correct.
Yes. Councilwoman, you know, I actually happened to watch this particular meeting on Channel 6, and I saw this item. And if I remember, Kendall, they also said that it would only be changing tires from the rims and putting them back on. And in some cases where they go with smaller rims, they have to put some kind of blocking and mechanical work. That's done off-site somewhere.
Correct.
Does that answer your question? And there's 3 parking spaces, correct? But they said they had 3 employees.
Correct.
Therein lies the problem, but they said that the employees are relatives right now.
Right.
But that could change in the future. What is the concern?
Could change, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's good information.
I think somebody wanted to.
If there's nothing else, we'll continue. We're now to section on resolutions. The first 2 resolutions, 23318 and 23418, deal with clarification of tax incentives for both the Cadence Premier Logistics and for Project Osprey or Mars. Shortly after the City Council recently approved both, we were informed that the terms of the tax abatement needed to be further clarified to meet with the approval of Will County officials, and I think those, Marty, were in the office of the assessor. Marty can give you additional information on these, but again, these resolutions have been revised. They meet now with what we understand to be with the approval of the assessor. We're bringing them back for city approval with the revised language. Is there any questions on those items? As I mentioned earlier this evening, I do want to point out, I think it was a prior practice, city managers, that items 3, 4, 5, and 6, or council memos 235-18, 236-18, 237-18, 238-18, are on the agenda for the Public Service Committee tomorrow night. And hence they'll be reviewing, acting on them, and bringing their recommendation. I could read these as well tonight, but I think in the past meetings, and it even came from Councilman Hug, he mentioned I might give that a try and see if the council wanted me to repeat what the committee's going to discuss tomorrow night, or?
I say no.
Okay, unless anyone objects. Hence, I will jump down to Council Memo 24018. This is a resolution authorizing execution of a comprehensive intergovernmental agreement between the Joliet Public Library and the City of Joliet to effectuate a land swap for services and other matters. Let me turn to our corporate counsel. Marty, is there any kind of highlights you just want to briefly mention in this resolution, IGA?
As part of the proposed plaza, there's actually a parking lot which the library owns, and this allows for the city to, if and when we do build the plaza, to include the parking lot.
I want to compliment both of you. This was a kind of heavy lifting. We didn't think it would be, but good work.
No, I do want to thank the library. They did ask me if they wanted to be here today, and I said, well, it's up to you, but I do want it. I mean, it was a give and take.
Agreed. They didn't have to work with us, and they did. So thank you to the library.
Yeah. And thank you, Mayor. I joined the mayor one night to meet with the board, and I think it was well received to have the mayor there that night. So, and keep in mind, this really kind of clears the way for the ongoing work on the Chicago Street Corridor Improvement Project, the City Square, as you heard from the Jim Trisna, I think a couple of weeks ago. Under bids and contracts, next section is award of contracts. Now, what I would like to bring to your attention that item number 1, Council Memo 24218, is going to be on tomorrow night's public service agenda. However, this is for the reconstruction at the Bicentennial Park Fountain to R.W. Clark Construction in the amount of $175,800. So I just wanted to make you aware that I can continue to move on unless there was any questions. We did appreciate, we put some drawings in your packet at the final design of the fountain, and I think some other information. So unless there's anything else, any other questions?
I am so glad that the fountain is coming back on track. So, one question. I know we had approved $150,000 for the fountain at one time, and I see now that we are at $25,008 over. But I understand that is that going to be coming out of CDBG funds?
Mr. Jackson or Mr. Stir, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, that's coming out of CDBG funding.
Okay. We also had a committee looking at that too, and I saw the drawing that we have here. Beautiful, nice. Are we not using the waterless thing, or how much water we're gonna have in that fountain?
Yeah, so there will be very little water. There's a grate, and any water that pools will be underneath that grate.
Underneath the grate.
Yeah.
Good deal.
So no more bathing.
No more bathing in the fountain, great, okay. That answers all my questions.
I guess I'll have to go somewhere else.
All right, moving on. The next two items, Council Memo 24318 and 24418, will both be on the Public Safety Committee, Council Committee that's meeting tomorrow night. First deals with purchase of some portable radios. The second having to do with repairing damage to Tower 6. So unless there's any questions, Public Safety will be acting on that tomorrow night and bring their recommendation to you. Next item, we have a Council Memo 24518, a request for authorization to pay maintenance fee for Tyler Munis Software in the amount of $407,967. I do not show that this is going through any council committee at this time. Is there any questions on this particular memo and that expenditure? Council Memo 24618, 24718, 24818, 24918, and bear with me, Council Memo 25018, 25118, 25218, 25318, and 25418 are all on the Public Service Committee agenda for tomorrow night, and hence will be reviewed and recommendation made by that committee to the full council tomorrow evening prior to the regular meeting. Is there any questions on any of those Public Service Committee agenda items that will be up for a final vote by the council tomorrow night? If not, that brings me to amendments, change orders, and payments. Council Memo 25618 and 25718 will also be on the Public Service Committee for tomorrow night. And as described, and you'll receive their recommendation tomorrow evening. So with that, that kind of completes the review of the City Council agenda for Tuesday, May 1st. Turn it back to the City Clerk.
Next is public comments. First, we have Patrick Cardwell.
Be too loud here. Good evening, council. I'm Patrick Cardwell, 1050 Glenwood, Joliet. I'm a 24-year employee of the Joliet Police Department, and I currently serve in patrol as a sergeant. I'm the past president of the FOP Patrolmen's Union, and I'm the current president of the FOP Supervisors Union. I've served on union boards with the city for the past 20 years representing the FOP. I represent a membership that is filled with proud, honorable men and women, serve our city to the fullest. We respect our benefits, we respect our wages, and we salute the contract that we currently work under. Having said all this, it brings me no joy, no satisfaction, having to come to this podium this evening and speak to you. The question I have for Mayor and Council is simple. Why? Why does the Council, Mayor, refuse to acknowledge a proposal from city staff that was given to our membership in November of 2017? The proposal is titled as Bargaining Unit Reduction. The proposal was authored by the labor law firm of Clark, Beard, and Smith at the direction of city staff members. Clark, Beard, Smith is a nationally recognized labor law firm which represents the city on labor-related issues. Clark, Beard, Smith used a staff study as the blueprint for this proposal. In 2017, the city spent $35,000 on a staff study by Alexander Weiss. Alexander Weiss identified and called for the elimination of the captain role within the Joliet Police Department. The proposal, which many of you have seen, and I've spoken to you before about, calls for the removal of the captain rank through attrition for a wage increase. The proposal would save taxpayers $650,000 annually. After it was presented to our membership, it was voted on by our union body on November 22nd, 2017, and it passed overwhelmingly. The proposal was signed and dated and returned to city staff, who also signed it upon receiving it. After passing the bargaining unit reduction, the clouds of misinformation began to settle over City Hall. Tortious interference by several union officials started a smear campaign against the city-issued proposal. The campaign was comparable to that of a Chicago-style election. Let's dirty up the facts. Let's use diversionary tactics of misinformation, and personal agendas became priorities. After continuing to find some resolution on this proposal, with no success, my membership was forced to file an unfair labor practice with the Illinois Labor Relations Board against the city. In my 20 years as a union member and on a union board, I've never seen this before happen. The Labor Relations Board found that there was merit for this complaint. Is currently assigned to an investigator in Springfield. Since filing this complaint, the city has retained the labor law firm of Clark, Beard, Smith to represent and defend them in this unfair labor practice. Clark, Beard, and Smith has been hired to argue against a proposal in which they authored just 6 months ago. This merry-go-round of litigation, legal fees has cost the citizens of Joliet tens of thousands of dollars, and these costs will continue to mount unless city leadership, as yourselves, will do something to stop it. This is completely unnecessary for all parties involved. In closing, I stress to Mayor, Council, that our membership is satisfied and we're respectful of our current collective bargaining agreement. City staff presented this proposal to our membership, which provide the city with significant financial relief. This proposal has an annual savings of $650,000 attached to it. Ignoring it would be irresponsible to the citizens whom you all represent. What I'm asking council to do is put this proposal on a city agenda and vote on it. You could vote it down and you could save tens of thousands of dollars in litigation and legal fees. Or you could vote for it and save tens of thousands of dollars in litigation and legal fees, along with the annual savings of $650,000. I'm asking you to put it on the agenda and vote on it. This proposal represents responsible city government.
You're at the 4-minute mark. You wrap it up, please.
Yes. At this time, I just want to say I appreciate being given the opportunity here to speak. But again, we have to take our heads out of the sand on this. So is there any questions or comments?
I would recommend that no one comment on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Council.
Kevin LeBowl.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kevin LeBeau. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here on behalf of the Joliet Supervisors Association as well, and just would quickly like to add some perspective to what Pat Carbo just spoke about. Basically, as you know, 80% of the city's budget goes towards personnel costs. You as a council are always trying to manage those costs. Right now, you have a union standing in front of you saying, we accept your proposal, reduce us. And for some reason, you're afraid to take advantage of that. I guess our question is basically why? Why are you fighting yourselves? And how did you get into this position in the first place? Litigating against saving money seems unnecessary to our members and destroys credibility. Our members appreciate very much and are grateful for your hard work you do on behalf of the city. And we're just asking that you reconsider this, ask some questions, and reconsider the proposal in front of you. A ULP does not look good and is unnecessary for anybody's record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak under public comments? Seeing none?
Just so everyone's aware, there's a process that takes place when an unfair labor practice charge is filed. So that's the process that we're following through. As far as I know, they haven't withdrawn it yet, so that's where we are.
With no other public comments, there is no executive session this evening, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Chris, I think there is going to be a call for an executive session.
Yeah, I'd like to call a closed session for personnel and land acquisition.
Is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel and land acquisition, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
Move to approve.
Second.
So motion seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Motion carried.